Hey, it's Connor with the Chronicler. It's been about 2 months since the last video, and I've read a bit since then, so I wanted to do kind of a end of summer update video. It's early September now, so let's just kind of talk about what I read there at the end of summer. So really there's 3 main books I want to focus on. First, we're going to focus on Joe Abercrombie. Joe has been one of the main authors I've been reading this year. I've absolutely fallen in love with The First Law, the world of The First Law, and I finished the trilogy. I made a video about Last Argument of Kings, and it absolutely floored me. Definitely one of my 5-star books of the year, so I went ahead and went forward and went to one of his standalones, and that is Best Served Cold. It's a standalone, but it's still set within the world of The First Law, so you definitely want to read through the first trilogy, and then go to this. And then I'm going to be reading the heroes definitely before the end of the year. Absolutely love Joe's prose, his characters, there's such great stuff there. So for Best Served Cold, I gave the book a 4.5 out of 5 initially, and I think I'm pretty happy with that rating. Maybe I'd bump it down to a 4.25. I'd say this is up there with the other ones in terms of quality. I definitely like Last Argument of Kings better than Best Served Cold, and I think I like Before They Are Hanged better than this also. So I'd say this is right around the same level as the first book there, The Blade itself. But Best Served Cold certainly has some of the most entertaining moments I've ever seen from Joe Abercrombie. There's a scene in one brothel where a lot of stuff happens, and I was actually laughing my ass off. It takes a lot for a book to actually get me to laugh, and here I was really laughing a lot. It's just super highly entertaining. This one just has such a good band of misfits that I think you should read the book just for this chemistry between all the members of this gang together. If you don't really know anything about Best Served Cold, it's definitely just a revenge story following Monza Mercado, Monza Mercado I think it is, as she wants to get vengeance on the ruler of an kingdom, and that kingdom is kind of like in a civil war in its country. There's been a lot of years of blood, as they would say, and people kind of start looking at Monza as this figure that makes her dangerous to this kingdom. Some stuff happens very early on in the book, like the first chapter, the intro, and that really establishes what you're going to get here going forward. I will say one thing here is that this felt a little bit more episodic, because there's about 6 people that Monza wants to get vengeance on, and the book is divided up into like 6 parts or so. So you're really going through each of these kind of, start, stop. There's a lot of momentum carry, and then you kind of reset for each thing. So when things are structured that way, it makes it easier for me to put down the book for a little bit rather than just getting lost in the complete flow of it. But I really like this book overall, would highly recommend, just super entertaining. I don't necessarily think it's as deep as a lot of the stuff that happens in the first trilogy, but still really good, great themes, great characters, highly entertaining, super funny, and if you haven't read it yet, I would highly recommend. Next up, we have I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This is a book that came out, I think, quite a long time ago, but recently has been picking up quite a bit of popularity. I was at Pal's bookstore up in Portland not too long ago, and it was actually like their second best-selling book in the entire store, from what I could see on their display shelf there. This one's been getting quite a bit of traction on BookTube also, and this year I've been really pushing myself to mix up the length of my books. I'm pretty good about bouncing back and forth between sci-fi and fantasy, but I also want to really start mixing up the length of the books more, and even doing more genres. I sprinkle in some horror here and there, but I think I need to mix it up even more in terms of genre and length, just to keep things fresh for me and stop myself from feeling like I'm kind of getting burnt out on reading just the same thing over and over again. So for I Who Have Never Known Men, it was a buddy read with my sister and one of my friends, Mackenzie, and we all ended up really liking this book. The book's really short. You could get through it from like 2 to 4 hours, I would say. I did it on audiobook and physical book, or ebook. Usually that's how I read these days, is I'll get both the audiobook and the digital book, and that way I can go back and forth. Sometimes though, there's a narrator I really don't like that throws the vibe off, and then I'll just read the book, digitally or physically in that case. But for this, the narrator was pretty solid. The book is fantastic. It is translated into English, and I'm not sure if this is the original translation or a new translation, but I thought it was well done. In this book, we follow an unnamed narrator as they kind of recount their life to us through a journal that they've written. She's lived a very unique life in a very unique scenario. Basically, the premise of the book is that she All she knows is that she's lived underground in this cage with a bunch of other women, and the only men that there are this guard patrol that never really interact with the women except to maybe sometimes whip them if the behavior is bad, or just to generally keep them in check. She lives this way for quite a while, and then some things start to change, and you get to explore a bit more. I don't really want to say too much beyond that because this is really a book you should experience for yourself. I'll say this book doesn't go out of its way to over-explain anything, which I really enjoy. So many books and authors go out of their way to really make things very clear for the reader. This one doesn't really hold your hand. You gotta figure things out for yourself, draw your own conclusions, and that's where you're gonna get the most out of this book. I also ended up giving this book a 4.5 out of 5, and I definitely say that this rating feels rock solid, spot on for me. If anything, I'd drop Best Served Cold down to 4.25, but this, at a 4.5, is dead on. And now the most recent book I finished, House of Suns. I'll be thinking about this book for quite a while. This is by Alistair Reynolds. Reynolds is one of those authors that I've really wanted to get around to reading. He's kind of in that ballpark of Adrian Tchaikovsky. I think Tchaikovsky is a lot more well-known in the kind of general public than Alistair Reynolds is, but I'd say they're both kind of those staples of modern sci-fi that you should read. So I've never read Reynolds before, but I have watched Love, Death, and Robots, and I think at least some of his work was adapted there. Zima Blue is one of his short stories that was turned into an animation for that, so I was definitely super interested in getting to his work because I absolutely love Zima Blue. For Reynolds, the big work from him is Revelation Space. It's his big series. There's a lot of kind of sub-series within it, but I wanted to start out with just a standalone to kind of get the feel for him, and House of Suns seemed like a great place to start for me. The book seemed to have good reception, and a lot of people said that this was a great place to start reading Reynolds. So this book is absolutely jam-packed to the brim with just great sci-fi ideas and things that really made me stop and think, and even after I finished the book, I had to go on YouTube and like watch some videos about stuff because it was just like something I'd never really experienced in a book before. One of the key things though is that in this book, faster than light travel is not possible as far as they know. And this results in travel through space taking an extremely long time. So people go into stasis for a very long time, into hibernation for a very long time as they travel through the galaxy. And all that they've managed to travel through is really the Milky Way. They haven't gone beyond because, you know, with no FTL, it would just take an immeasurably long amount of time to travel that distance. Like I said, this is just packed with so many sci-fi ideas. You have the disappearance of an entire galaxy, machine people, faster than light travel stuff, just so much causality. It's all in this book, and I was worried as I was nearing the end of the book. Like, there are so many ideas and threads out there. Are they all gonna tie together in a satisfying way? And I think that they do, but here are some caveats. So this book could have been one of my favorite books of all time, like top 3 probably, if everything had gone just a little bit differently. I think Reynolds, his character writing here is pretty plain. A lot of the characters are clones of each other, so it kind of makes sense that they would have a similar character voice. But even across races, across different like kinds of beings entirely, the character voice isn't the most magnificent ever. It's pretty straightforward and to the point. So that's not really strength of Reynolds as far as I can tell. The characters are good enough, and the main 2 characters are pretty decent, but nothing here that I was like superly emotionally invested into. Probably one of the other complaints I can lodge at this book is that I think that it might do too much telling rather than showing near the end. But I still think what I was told was like mind-blowing. It was so interesting. Some of the stuff I haven't really encountered in sci-fi before or thought about really, that was done here that I thought was just awesome, so well done. When I finished the book, I was like, wow, okay. Like I said, I went on YouTube and watched some videos about certain things because it made me think about things in other sci-fi that we take for granted. I don't want to say what it is. Things in other sci-fi that are so taken for granted and how they actually might literally break the laws of the universe. And this book does a really good job about making the reader think about those things and how they might actually be a problem and how maybe that problem could be circumvented. So with this, I kind of feel like I've been on a hot streak with reading, because this is also a 4.5 for me. I love this book. Like I said, a few more things tweaked a little bit, and this could have been top 3 even books of all time for me. Mass Effect is one of my favorite games of all time, and for some reason this book in particular was hitting so many of those notes that made me just... It's like the closest thing to Mass Effect. It's not really like Mass Effect, but it was hitting so many of those same satisfying notes to me that it was just an extremely satisfying and good read. So I finished up House of Suns while I was on vacation. My girlfriend and I went up to the Oregon coast, Seattle and Portland, kind of just exploring the general area, seeing some friends, seeing some family. I'll put some photos up here maybe. It was a great time, super nice to just kind of relax, read a little bit, listen to some audiobooks. So I finished up House of Suns while we were up there, and then I went ahead and started Disquiet Gods, right while we were on the beach, just kind of chilling there. And this is the 6th book in the Sun Eater. Currently, I'm sitting at 40% of the way through Disquiet Gods. So Sun Eater is probably my favorite book series of all time. I really, really like what Christopher Rocchio is doing here, and I think that Disquiet Gods is pushing up there in terms of the best books in the series. 40% of the way through it, there's been some crazy, crazy stuff that's happened. Really awesome. A lot more action early on than I thought, but also a lot of really good lore stuff, and I'm just curious to see where it goes from here. I know some people say this is kind of the lore book for the series. I think book 4 was also definitely a big lore book, and it's hitting on a lot of those kind of same things that were in book 4 are getting more fleshed out here in this book. So if you've read the series, you might know what I'm talking about. I was waiting to read Disquiet Gods because back in January, I finished Ashes of Man, and I had read all the way through Empire of Silence to Ashes of Man with a few short stories and the novellas in there for Sun Eater, and I was feeling a little bit burnt out. I love Sun Eater, but I've talked about this in other videos. I had appendicitis, really bad, in January, and that's when I was reading Ashes of Man, and some dark, grim stuff happens in that book, and that combined with my health and just my mood at that time, it was kind of all clashing, and I was like, I need a little bit of a break from the Stolen Empire. And I know that Shadows Upon Time, the 7th and last book, and the Sun Eater is coming out here in November, so I wanted to wait and read Disquiet Gods closer to the release of that book, so the whole series is a little bit more fresh in my mind. For our main character, Hadrian Marlowe here, it really feels like he's entered his old man era, kind of being pulled back into the fray and even deeper than ever before. I'm really interested to see where things go going forward here. It feels like the first major arc of the book kind of just ended, and now I'm interested to see really where they go from here, because the threat level has been elevated even higher than ever before for Sun Eater, and Hadrian Marlowe's got to do what he's got to do to make things right. So that's really all here for the kind of end of summer update. I think I'll do more videos like this one where I combine a couple books together and give you an update every 3 to 4 weeks. One thing is that I haven't been reading quite as much lately because back there on my 3DS, here, I'll grab it. On this little guy right here, I have been getting back into playing Fire Emblem Conquest. Fire Emblem is one of my favorite game series of all time, and when I start playing them, I kind of just go into a black hole. And I beat the Fire Emblem Conquest one time on hard, classic mode, and then I was like, okay, now it's time to do the hardest difficulty. So I'm playing through that on Lunatic classic mode. Maybe if there's any Fire Emblem fans out there, you might appreciate that, but it's really hard, but it's so enjoyable. It's so good. So this has been taken away from my reading time right now, and then Hollow Knight Silksong just came out. I'm a gamer too, I just don't do reading. I got a couple hobbies, so they all gotta vie for my time, but getting through some books here and there and wanted to keep the channel updated, don't want to just let it go into hibernation mode for too long. So that's about it. Hope you liked the video. Subscribe if you like it, and hopefully I'll have some more videos soon for you here. Otherwise, have a good one and take care.